Uber drivers say the job has become more competitive and that it's made their work less profitable. Many Uber and Lyft drivers say ride hailing has become less profitable than it used to be, and some are blaming that on gigs' popularity. Fred, a part time Uber driver in Virginia, earned roughly $44,000 in 2020. Is that a lot to you guys? According to documents viewed by Business Insider, but he said his earnings fell over 25% last year. I would occasionally go to the airport for a ride and stop at the Uber and Lyft waiting areas during the pandemic, said Fred, who asked to use a pseudonym for fear of professional repercussions. Those nights, I would see the same 8 to 10 people waiting for rides. Now the lot is full each time I go past with 20 to 40 cars waiting. Gotta change your strategy. Can't wait at the airport anymore. Fred is one of several drivers who told Business Insider that an increase in drivers has contributed to fewer available and lower paying trips. In November 2023, Uber announced it had a record 6.5 million active drivers and couriers. This came after the number of global Uber drivers increased 31% in 2022 to a record 5 million. I mentioned this earlier, right? Uber now has the most drivers it has ever had, and they are still continuing to try and find more. So what are you going to do with that information? You can strike, that's fine, but you got to make sure you pay your bills as well. Meanwhile, in the fall of 2022, or right before you go further, if you want to take cash rides to mitigate that, you can do that too, but just be aware of the risk associated with it. And if you want to do cash rides and ride challenges, you can do both of those too. You don't have to do one or the other. Meanwhile, in the fall of 2022, Lyft said it had its highest number of active drivers in over 2 years, didn't respond to Business Insider's request for data on the growth of drivers in recent years. I would like to see more data out of Uber. Yeah, that's it. I want more data. I want to see the data that they're using to support their arguments. I think that's fair. Well, especially for a public trading company. While elevated inflation has motivated more people to try gigs like ride hailing, easing COVID-19 concerns have also fueled the recent growth in drivers, right? So if you started during the pandemic, you do have to accept and realize you started at a time where most drivers stopped driving, which is why it became busy. So like it normaled out from that, but when it did normal out, it kept going down because they have always been trying to decrease how much they've been paying drivers. Like you can look at graphs, like every year the average a driver makes decreases. But what are you doing with that information? Between January and April 2020, the number of active Uber and Lyft drivers was more than cut in half, according to the data analytics company Gridwise. I just said that. As pandemic-related health concerns persisted, a driver shortage lasted well into 2021. It took people a while to come back. And on top of that, the government was handing out like stimulus checks. People were just staying home, employment checks. They didn't feel the need to drive. In fact, I was driving during that time period. And what they should have done is they should have made use of that time to like stack their money up and transition away. Now, if you had valid health concerns, I get it. It was a scary time, but eventually we kind of learned that it wasn't that bad, and we should have been out there hustling. And when I got my stimulus check, I bought a truck and I started a couch flip business. I wasn't just sitting there not doing anything. I was trying things. Drivers who worked during the height of the pandemic were often rewarded. I was rewarded. Lower driver supply and recovering ride demand contributed to higher fares and wages. And for many drivers, customer tips were more generous as well. But times have changed. Driver supply has rebounded and tipping seems to have returned to normal or become less common for some drivers. Depends on the day, depends on the time, depends on who. Other factors could be working against drivers as well. Some have complained that changes to the platform algorithms not increasing competition are what's truly constraining drivers' pay. Both, right? We're not gonna say, well, what is with this notion that it's either or? It can be both, that platform algorithms have changed with like upfront pay, and that there is increasing competition. Why can't they like overlap? I don't understand why it has to be either or. The changing landscape can have a big impact on hourly earnings. Rich, an Arizona Uber driver in his 70s, made over $80,000 in 2022, but he said it's become more difficult to make money on the platform lately. I'm making less per hour this year than I made in the previous 3 years, said Rich, who asked us to use a pseudonym for fear of professional repercussion. Okay. Rich said driving was very profitable in early 2021, which it was, which he attributed to the decrease in driver caused by COVID concerns. He said the recent uptick in drivers has changed the landscape, right? I find it to be spot on accurate. There was a number of times when I'd make over $2,000 a week, as high as $2,700 one week. However, those days are long gone. He said, referring to this earnings in 2022, I can't remember the last time I made $2,000 in a week. I will say, this guy seeing for 70-year-old person, he's hustling. I'll give it to them. He's hustling a lot harder than a lot of people who are younger than him. Even if he can't make the same amount, still had to hustle to make that money. It's not like it fell into your lap. You still got to put in the work, put in the hours, learn what you're doing. He's 70. I for sure don't want to be 70 and have to work a job now. And I don't want that for any of you either. That's why we need a plan. In September and October, Rich earned between 1,000 and 1,500 during the 4 weeks he drove 5 or more days, according to a document viewed by Business Insider. That's pretty bad. I want to see those documents, but that is pretty bad. However, Uber disagrees with the sentiment from drivers when asked whether the rising number of drivers. Let me go back and reread that. Between 1,000 and 1,500 during the 4 weeks he drove 5 or more days. I'd want more clarification. I think if you work 4 to 5 days a week and make that much, it depends on how many hours he's working. Like there's more nuance here. I need to see what the nuance is. However, Uber disagrees with the sentiment from drivers when asked whether the rising number of drivers has negatively impacted earnings on the Uber platform. A company spokesperson told BI that growing customer demand has helped to offset the increase in driver supply. Kinda, right? Like it's exponential. So if Uber gets one driver, that one driver could potentially take 20 passengers in a day. So the growth would have to outweigh drivers by 20, by a factor of 20. So if there are 100 drivers, they would need 2,000 new customers to make up for that. So it's not as simple as Uber is trying to make it seem. That's low. And this is why we need to see the stats. Drivers remain busy and earnings are strong. They said that's largely because we have more customers on the platform today than ever before, taking more trips and placing more orders than ever. As Uber is talking, I'm starting to feel slime just like cover my body. Like if you're gonna say these things, prove it. Show us the numbers. In November, Uber reported that its monthly active platform consumers had grown 50% over the prior year to 142 million. The number of trips increased 25% year over year, and the number of monthly trips per customer matched an all-time high of 5.7. So the median US driver, hold on, I'll give my opinion in a second. The US driver's earnings per utilized hour, including tips and incentives, has grown nearly 30% over the last year. So it could grow, but if the amount of money drivers are making, but the amount of drivers there are on the road grows faster than the amount of money that's being made, then the total pool makes that money smaller. So that's not a direct comparison. In fact, with Uber saying that there's a 15% growth in passengers, we need to also compare that to what's the growth in drivers. That's how we figure out more accurately what's really happening. Lyft did not respond to a request for comment from BI. Well, at least Uber said, but it still feels like slime. All right, so the next part of this is driving during less busy periods can boost earnings. For drivers concerned about rising competition, there's one possible solution: start your shift early in the morning. That's what I do. It's some good advice. On a normal weekday, Fred said he starts work at 3:30 a.m. I wake up at 3. I'll drive down about 3:30. He drives until 6 a.m., works from 6:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. at his office job, then starts driving again right after work until about 7:30 p.m. or 8 p.m. I would do, well, everyone's market is different. I drive until traffic starts around 7 a.m. in my market. I go home, and then I won't go back out until the earliest 6:30, because that's when traffic is starting to break up. Driving during traffic is not ideal. If you have responsibilities that force you to have to do that, you got to do what you got to do. I get it. It's going to suck. It's going to suck. And I know we're independent contractors and we want to work whenever we want to work. But if you want to maximize your income, you're going to have to work when the market dictates you should work. Rich said it's not uncommon for him to start working as early as 4:30 a.m. After I have my coffee, I watch a little news, I start driving. You can listen to your news in your car. That's it. They just stop there. They start giving like ways to improve your income, and then just stop the article. I don't know. You see what you guys are saying. All right, we're moving forward. You ain't saying anything. All right, 5 Uber and Lyft drivers share why they plan to keep their ride-hailing jobs even as pay declines. And I haven't read this. I put most of my effort into preparing my response to Uber AZ. So let's see what's going on here. Some Uber and Lyft drivers are struggling to make as much money as they once did, but don't expect them to give up. In recent months, several Uber and Lyft drivers have told Business Insider that driving has gotten less profitable. Changes to the app's algorithm, declining customer tips, increased competition, and high vehicle expenses have been among the top explanations cited. For those drivers, there are other options in the gig economy. While ride-hailing is among the most popular gig jobs, delivery driving, reselling, dog walking, babysitting, and freelance riding has also provided flexible work opportunities for many Americans. But some Uber and Lyft drivers don't think these gigs are as profitable or as convenient as ride-hailing. That's true. I think Uber and Lyft are some of the best straightforward gigs. Like I have the skill to edit, and I could make more money editing than I can with Uber and Lyft. I'd have to go out and build my client list, but I hate editing for other people. I can't do it, and I tried. I really did. But some Uber drivers, we just read that. Business Insider asked 5 drivers why, despite their financial challenges, they have no plans to explore other work in the gig economy. Business Insider has verified their identities and earnings. This is going to be interesting to look into. Food delivery isn't very profitable when customers don't tip. I've experienced that. Julie, a part-time Uber driver in Cleveland, Ohio, earned roughly $22,000 last year before driving X. This year, the 28-year-old says she's earning significantly less for her work, which is attributed to front fares feature. This feature, which has been rolled out across the US in recent years, provides drivers with more information about a trip's pay and destination before they decide whether to. Some drivers say it's negatively impacted their earnings. In 2022, Julie earned roughly 93 cents, including tips, for every mile she drove for Uber. This past July, she earned roughly 63 cents per mile across 52 trips. It's pretty bad. She's doing pretty well here, and this is not that great. Like, you really want to be at minimum on a bad day over 80 cents per mile. But you know what? I have a theory that part of what's causing drivers to lose money is upfront pay, because it's a like pay decrease in disguise. But I feel like drivers aren't making great decisions about what's a good ride and what's a bad ride, right? If you're just tuning in, earlier I went through some $3 rides that paid out like $2 per mile. Like, why wouldn't you take that? Because it's $3, but it adds up. Like, it's a short ride. You're getting paid a high amount per mileage, and people will see that in the upfront fare. And even Sergio, right? The Rideshare channel, what is it called? The Rideshare Hub, whatever it's called. They made a video. I feel like it's a sneak diss against me, where they're saying, $3 rides, you should never take them. And I don't think you should only take $3 rides, but I think there's a time and place where you can increase how much money you make per mile and therefore increase your profits if you figure out a strategy to incorporate them. It's not going to be the only strategy you use, but I've beaten that horse down, so let's keep moving. Upfront pricing has given me rides that wouldn't even cover my gas, and many days I'm out working, I won't even make our state's minimum wage, said Julie, who asked us to use a pseudonym, spoke on the condition of anonymity for fair professional repercussions. Insider, if you want someone who's okay with having their information out there, hit me up. I got you. Nothing against her. I understand not wanting your information out there, but I got you. Let's go. Let's talk. Let's chat. An Uber spokesperson declined to address whether upfront fares could be hurting drivers' earnings. Lyft has a similar feature. Due in part to her financial challenges with Uber, Julie says she's tried driving for DoorDash, but she thinks ride hailing is more profitable. So despite the fact that she says she's not making money on some trips, she still thinks rideshare is more profitable. In my market, no one leaves tips, she said, for DoorDash experience, and you will literally be working for sometimes $2 or $3 an hour. It's rough. They need to fix that. Playing about Uber and Lyft all you want. These food delivery apps, they're worse. Some base payments for DoorDash deliveries, which exclude tips, can be as low as $2. Yep. Instacart isn't as profitable as a few years ago. All right, I'm not going to go through that. I hate Instacart. Dog walking had inconsistent pay and wasn't convenient. Food delivery can mean waiting for orders and relying on customer tips. That is another bane of the existence. There aren't many other options for gig work. All right, let's read this. Ricky Rodriguez, an Uber driver in San Juan, Puerto Rico, who has been working for about 5 years, earned about $48,000 last year from Uber before driving X. I assume the cost of living is cheaper in Puerto Rico. I could be wrong. That might be good money in Puerto Rico. He said he's barely earning enough to continue driving. It's not, in part due to the high living expenses in his area. I was completely wrong. If it weren't for the tips that I receive, I probably wouldn't be able to keep driving with them. Despite these challenges, Rodriguez said he hasn't thought much about other gigs. Here in Puerto Rico, there aren't any other options that would work, he said. I like driving and meeting new people on a daily basis, and I haven't found another alternative. I can understand not finding another gig that works well there, but you need to start developing a skill that gets you out of it. You just have to. You can't just sit and wait. You just can't. You just can't, right? If you have no other option, you just can't. If you think Uber and Lyft, okay, I don't think Uber and Lyft will drastically increase pay for a very long time. Even if something gets passed legally, it's going to take a while. The government moves slow. If you think that pay is going to continue decreasing, then I would like for you to create a plan, an exit plan, right? I want you to achieve that exit plan as soon as possible. If you decide to stay with Uber and Lyft as long as you can, but you still have the exit plan and it's kind of working for you still, fine. But don't get caught with your pants down. It takes a long time to change something, right? To change your finances, to change careers. You might have to go to school for 2 years. That's a long time. You might need to save up like enough money to buy a house. That's like, it could be a year. It's a long time. You can't get caught with your pants down. You have to start preparing. It's better to be prepared, right? We see the signs. We're talking about it. We're all frustrated. You need to prepare. Like, if you want to go on strike, that's fine. But while you're striking, make sure that you're prepared. So let's move forward.